Indecision is worse than a wrong decision. Jessica Dennehy. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. I don't have a budget for this. I need to focus on this other thing first, and then after I'm ready, I'll come back. I have to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk to my partner. I need to pray about this. I'm going to think about it. I just don't know if this can be done. I'm going to do some more research. I've got to do my due diligence. I want to talk to some others who have done this. Do you have any references for me? Somebody else is already doing that. I don't think that there's room for it. I think the market's too competitive right now, and there's no space for me. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. These are all stalls, smoke screens, delay tactics. Some of them are outright lies. Not lies that we tell to salespeople necessarily, not even on purpose, but they are lies we tell ourselves. Because it all boils down to one thing. I just gave you a list of most of the common objections that people receive if they're trying to sell something. And you've probably said a lot of those things, and if you're in sales or business, you've probably heard a lot of those things. And we all think we're super original by saying, my wife was going to join me on the call, but she had some errands to run, and, yeah. Like, dude, heard that 1,000 times. If she's involved in the decision, she's got to be on the call. And so there's a reason that you're at where you're at. It's because you keep doing these behaviors that keep you where you are. And it all comes down to one thing. These objections, these smoke screens, these stalls, these delays, all of these things that you do, the barriers that you put in place to keep you from making a decision, it comes down to one thing. I just don't think this is going to work for me. I'll say that again. I just don't think this is going to work for me. I just don't think this is going to work for me. That is really, truly the only objection. There is nothing else. Everything else is a variation or an iteration or a permutation of, I just don't think this is going to work for me. All of the lies, all of the manipulation, all of the smoke screens that we do to ourselves, not even to the world around us, but we convince ourselves that all of these other things are true, when the only thing that is true is, I just don't think this is going to work for me. And I want that to hit home. If you're stuck where you're at because of indecision, keep in mind Jessica's words at the beginning of this podcast. Indecision is worse than a wrong decision. What you're saying is, I just don't think this is going to work for me. But what if it does? Do you even know if it's going to work for you? What if you try it and it doesn't work? Then you've proven yourself right. Okay, check that off the list. You can stop wasting brain space on it now. You know it doesn't work. But if you don't think it's going to work, and you have nothing to back that up other than your own fears and insecurities, what's the real purpose here? If you're not happy with where you are, you're going to have to take some risks. Those risks need to be calculated, sure. But you need to understand that once you pick up your foot and you decide to make a decision, you don't know where that first step is going to land. You have a pretty good idea that it's going to land on solid ground, but you're not sure, and that paralyzes you. How do we overcome that? The first way that we overcome it is we have to acknowledge that there actually is a problem and an issue, and that both the problem and the solution lie within you. The problem is you don't have faith in yourself to make things work no matter what. The solution is you need to believe in yourself that any investment you make in yourself is always going to produce an ROI. Because without that belief, without that faith, nothing you do is ultimately going to work. I've made a bunch of really stupid decisions in my life. Some of them I regret. Most of them I don't. Some of them were very, very poor business decisions, and they cost me a lot of money. But I learned a lot of lessons. I interviewed a guy named Jay Massey a long time ago on a different podcast, and he said something that just really rang true to me. I asked him, what would you do? Well, what would you tell somebody who's in the same position that you were when you lost this huge real estate deal? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he said, listen, you just paid full price for that lesson. You make sure you take the class, and you make sure you pass it, so that you don't have to relearn that lesson, if you will. So coming back to the lies that we tell ourselves, what is it that's keeping you from believing that whatever it is going to work for you? And going back to a previous episode where I had the 3 checklists to starting a relationship. The first checklist is, do you trust the person or the company? Okay. Yes. If the answer is yes, then okay, we keep going. If the answer is no, well, you've got your answer. You walk, I don't trust you. Okay. And we've got to work on that. But if you do trust the person or the company, do you trust the plan or the process that they've laid out? Does it make sense? Does it seem functional? Does it seem like something that's going to work? And if the answer is yes, you move on to the last thing, which is, do you trust yourself to follow through? And therein lies the rub. Now, I'm not going to go through that in detail for this podcast because I already covered it in a previous episode. You're welcome to go check it out. But the point here is, I just don't think it's going to work for me. Has a whole lot more to do with you than however some salesperson presented it. Because there was something, unless it was a cold call and you were being nice, there was something that made you reach out. There was something that made you raise your hand and say, I need help. There was something there. And the salesperson or the company did a good job of presenting, or they didn't. That's on them. But your decision has to do with you. Because even if it's not the right thing, you got to be able to count on yourself to make it work. And that's kind of the evolution that I've been focusing on lately for myself, is I make decisions quicker these days because it actually costs me money to wait. It costs me time to perform due diligence. It costs me time and money to sit there and think about it, to consult with somebody else, and all of those things. All I'm really doing is stalling in those situations. And so what can I do? Well, the only thing I can control is myself and my own actions. And I know that if I get into a situation that does not perform or produce the way that I expect it to, I know, I have confidence in myself that I will make it work and I will make it right. I know that this is going to work for me. Not because of what you're offering me or what you do or any advantage that it provides me with your product or service, but I know it's going to work for me because I believe in me. Do you believe in you? There are really 4 reasons that somebody gets into this spiral of stalls and delays. And, well, first of all, the primary reason is you have a fear of making committed decisions. You have a fear of commitment. And we have to admit that first and foremost. I have a fear of commitment, okay? And we all have that fear. It's ingrained in all of us. It is a physiological, imprinted fear that is designed to protect us from chronic situations that are not healthy for us. But beyond that fear of commitment and decision, it comes down to there's really kind of 4 things. There's a lack of budget, a lack of trust, a lack of need, and a lack of urgency. Whenever we say something like, I just don't think it's going to work for me, one or more of those triggers are kicking up, aside from your own kind of self-doubt and not believing that it's possible, or not thinking that you need the help, all that stuff. So I want to give you some tools to turn that around, to turn that on its head. And I'm not doing this to make it easier for a sales guy to close you. I'm doing this to make it easier for you to get out of this perpetual honey trap, spider web of indecision that is keeping you where you are. If you're really resonating with that, I'm talking to you. If you don't really resonate with that, maybe I'm not talking to you. Maybe this is just kind of, continue on about your jog or your morning commute or whatever it is and enjoy the sound of my voice. I'm not sure. But if this is really resonating with you, if you struggle with indecision, then I'm just going to give you a very simple turnaround. I just don't think it's going to work for me. And I'm going to give you 3 words that you can apply to any situation that are going to make everything different. It's going to change your perspective, and it's going to change your actions. And here are the 3 words. How can I? How can I? Here's the application. I just don't think it's going to work for me. How can I believe it's going to work for me? How can I believe it's going to work for me? Now we're looking for a solution. Instead of throwing up a barrier, we're looking for a solution. How can I believe it's going to work for me? Let's go back to those 4 primary reasons that somebody gets stuck there. 4 primary reasons somebody says no. The 4 categories of objections, if you will. Lack of budget. I can't afford it. How can I afford it? How can I justify the funds to make this investment and this commitment? Lack of trust. I don't trust you. I don't know who you are. I've never heard of you. I don't know what you're all about. I don't know if your business is legit. How can I know you? How can I trust you? How can I know that your business is legit? We're looking for a solution. Lack of need. I don't really need this. I don't see how this is going to benefit me right now. I don't think this is something that I need. I need something else first before I need this. How can I need this? How can I make this something that I need right now? How can I focus on this without going and doing that other thing first? I'll get to more of that. I'll give you one more example on that in a second. But the last category here is urgency, lack of urgency. I don't have a bleeding neck right now. I don't need to go to the emergency room and get my bleeding neck resolved. How can I make this a priority right now? How can I create urgency for this right now to where I know that this is something that I need immediately? And here's the example that kind of pertains to those last 2. Advertising agencies. If you've worked with some, you've worked with others, some of them charge a flat fee retainer, some of them do some kind of creative compensation structure, but a lot of them, what they do is they are compensated based on a percentage of your ad spend. Now think about that. They get paid based on how much you spend in advertising. Kind of seems a little bit counterintuitive if you aren't familiar with how advertising works. But actually it makes a lot of sense because advertising agencies are obsessed with a term called ROAS, which is return on ad spend. ROAS, ROAS. And so if your ROAS is at least, let's say, 2x, that means for every $1 that you're putting into advertising, you're getting $2 back. And so if that's the case, well, how many quarters do you put in the gumball machine if it gives you 2 gumballs back? Think about it that way. And you start to understand really quick, I need to create an urgency to spend as much money as possible in advertising. And that's why a lot of them are compensated based on your ad spend. Because how can I create the urgency to spend all of this money? Well, I need to get everything dialed in so that I have at least a 2x ROAS so that every dollar I put into advertising, I get $2 back. And if that's the case, I have an unlimited amount of money to put in there. The advertising agency wins, and I win, and my clients win because I'm growing my business. So how can I create that need? How can I create that urgency? What can I do to my business to where I desperately need this thing that you're offering to me right now? How can I do that? And if you can answer those questions, that's going to give you clarity. Because if you say, how can I afford it? How can I trust you? How can I need this? And how can I make it urgent? And you can answer those questions, you can create a solution, that gets you unstuck. That gets you into a commitment and investment that's going to produce an ROI for you. And if you can't answer those questions, how can I believe that this is going to work for me? And you can't answer that, and you can't figure out how you can afford it or justify the need or the trust or the urgency, well, you've got your answer very clearly. You definitely don't need this. You definitely shouldn't do this. I'm not saying you should sign up for everything you're looking at. I'm saying that you need to make sure that the reason that you don't do something is not, I just don't think it's going to work for me. Because that's not sufficient. That's lazy. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then we throw up all these smoke screens and stalls and delays to lie to ourselves to think that it's something else besides that. But it's only that. Don't allow that to be the reason that you stand still. Dig deep. Find the solution. Let's get moving. That's going to do it for today's episode. I'm really excited to launch a new product coming up very soon. It's called the DoZone DNA Profile. This is the first time I've ever publicly announced it. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to start talking about it on every podcast episode. We're going to lead up to a launch that's coming really soon. So within the next couple of episodes, I'll give you a website to go and get on a waiting list. And you can be among the first to learn what this is. It's a personality profile assessment for entrepreneurs. And I'll dig into more details in the coming weeks. Until then, thank you very much for everything that you do for me personally and for listening to this podcast. The best way to show your appreciation is to subscribe on Apple and Spotify. Please leave a detailed review. Tell a friend. Spread the word. If this is resonating with you, screenshot it, put it on your Facebook stories or Instagram, and get other people out there to listen to this episode, to listen to this podcast. And I'll look forward to seeing you sometime soon in the future. Until next time, go do something.